was in conversation recently with Simon Sinek on his podcast, A Bit of Optimism. And the very first question that he asked me was, why are people so afraid of change? Now, the response that I gave him then, I still hold belief in today, but I haven't stopped pondering it. And so I want to go just a little bit deeper. So by the end of this video, you'll have my more expanded perspective on why I think we fear change, and something that I think might spark the mindset shift required to minimize your fear of change. In this video, I'll first share a little bit about my conversation with Simon. Then I'll go deeper to explore the source of our fears. And finally, pose a what if that just might lead you on a path to minimize your fear of change. What I shared with Simon and what I still believe today is that we fear change because within change lies the unknown. The difficult or even impossible to predict, the haze, the darkness, and we don't know what might be lurking within that haze and that darkness. And that in turn inspires fear. But that begs the same question yet again. Why? Why does that unknown inspire fear? So let's go a little deeper. Fear is so often inspired by the belief of the unseen or the unknown. We paint a picture of what could be. All the mess, all the poop, all the devastation, all the terrible things that could happen. We just get announced that the organization is restructuring. I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose the role that I love so much. I'm going to get a new manager that I hate. All these things that have not yet happened, we are putting our trust or our belief in those things. Things we cannot see, things we do not know. That belief inspires the fear, inspires the anxiety, the concern. And for some of us, that could happen turns in what will happen. It no longer becomes, I could lose my job. It becomes, I will lose my job. And so the fear becomes terror, becomes this emotion that paralyzes us, that keeps us stuck in our tracks. As we paint more and more vivid pictures of what could happen or what will happen, that belief becomes stronger and stronger. And we begin trusting that even though there's no evidence that this might happen, we're still going to place our trust and our belief that it will. So why is it that we keep thinking them? What is it that brings our minds there? For me, I've discovered that so often that seed of belief that starts and then we just, perpetuate it and keep thinking it over and over again. The seeds are planted oftentimes by prior experiences. Maybe we've been through an organizational restructure and we really did have the risk of losing our jobs. Maybe we literally have lost our jobs before because of an organizational restructure. So we remember those things that happen, the terrible fallout, the terrible frustrations, all the angst, all the anger that happened when going through the type of change that's before us today. And so we rely on those memories to then paint that picture of what's certain to happen now, because this same type of change is about to come forth. It might have even been one really, really traumatic experience. Maybe we've gone through this type of change 27 different times, but because of that one time where we had that really traumatic experience, that seed was planted. And that seed then grows into these thoughts that we keep perpetuating, painting this picture of what will happen. These known experiences and the lasting thoughts create the lens through which we look at life. But what if we were able to change that lens such that we looked at life differently? And by the way, do me a favor, as you're watching this, in your heart of hearts, as you think about change, comment yes or no if you fear change. If when change hits, you have this fear or this concern, if that's your natural tendency, drop in a yes or a no for you. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want you to avoid the fear, to suppress it or ignore it, but rather to acknowledge it and then transform it into hope. Hope of what could be in store. Anticipating the learning, the growth, the connections, the good things that will come because of this change that we're about to be a part of. Hope and anticipation of the good that's in store. of all the learning, the growth, the connections, the training that's going to be afforded to us because of this change. He needs a little bit bigger eyes, doesn't he? He needs to be bright-eyed because he's hopeful. Let's give him some bigger eyes. Let's give him some eyebrows. Yeah. Let's give him some earrings. I love this. Yeah, so hope the good, all the good that's in store, the learning and the growth. And those thoughts can still be founded in prior experiences, what we've experienced going through change. But in this situation, we're choosing to focus on the good things that came from change in the past. Those new connections, those new roles, or those skills that we wouldn't have been able to attain had we not been through the change. What if we allowed those thoughts to shape our lens? Those thoughts to create the perspective that we saw change through, the perspective that we held when going through change. And I actually want to reference back to something that Simon said, not during our conversation, but in the past. He's been interviewed before talking about the pandemic and kind of what we learned through it. And he talked about how the pandemic has helped to create this mindset shift because it was a devastating change for the entire globe. But as we have moved through it, we have learned so much. Many of us have been reminded and learned about what we truly value, what matters to us, how we want to go through our days, how we want to make work happen. We learned so much about ourselves, about our ability to go through traumatic experiences. We've all had this strengthened resiliency. And I think in many ways, it's helped us reduce that amount of fear that the unknown might present, because we've all been through a global pandemic. Yet through that pandemic, many of us started new businesses, started new relationships, got closer to the people that matter to us, ended relationships that didn't. And we all found this newfound appreciation and a celebration of life. I completely agree with Simon on this one. I think if we can all reflect on what we've gained, what we've learned because of the pandemic, it's going to help us see change through this lens, to find that hope that although there are unknowns, although there are more questions than answers, we're going to rely on all the good that's come from these past several years, going through a very traumatic experience. Speaking of change and fear, which is honestly where my work resides, at the intersection of emotion and change, I actually want to gift you something else. Something that will serve you the next time you're going through a big change, or that will help prepare you for the next inevitable change. I want to gift you a free chapter of my best-selling book, Change Enthusiasm: How to Harness the Power of Emotion for Leadership and Success. This introductory chapter is going to tell you all about this growth mindset and arm you with a mental framework that you can start practicing for the next change that you go through, something that's going to help you build your resiliency and ultimately be able to transform your fear of change into hope and anticipation of the growth that lies ahead for you. Because I want to make sure you have the data, the research, the insights to ensure your growth through even your toughest, most fearful change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.